Hey folks, welcome back to another edition of My Car Guru. This is Lenny Lawson, a real live new car dealer, like they said. With a twist, I do tell it like it is. For those of you who are new to this program, which would be probably a podcaster, or a podcast listener, I should say, or somebody who just moved into the Tri-Cities and still listens to AM radio. Yes, AM radio is a local thing and a good thing. And it will be around if we have a large, massive EMP strike on the region, and they'll still be able to get the word out to tell us what to do, where to go, where to get food, that kind of stuff. But let's not worry about that. You know, I read a book many years ago called 1 Second After, and almost after I got done, I wish I hadn't read it because it made me all paranoid, about surviving something like that where, we don't have electricity all of a sudden, and not for just a night or a week. It's done. There is no electricity. I mean, we're back into what century would that be? 19th century? Yep, that would be bad. And what made it even more real was that the setting for this book was about, 60 miles from where I'm sitting right now, over in western North Carolina, in the Asheville area. Black Mountain, as a matter of fact. And it kind of scared me a little bit, so I went and bought a whole bunch of freeze-dried food, about $5,000 worth, and stored it in a secret place so that we could survive maybe 90 days. But yeah, so that caused a reaction. Normally I don't read a book and go out and buy a bunch of stuff because of it. It's kind of the opposite of this show because I'm trying to keep you from spending money. When you buy a car, when you buy it from a dealer or an individual, there's just certain things you got to be careful about, so that's what I like to talk about. Let's see. Oh, I went to rehab the other day for my new hip, and the lady said, "Hey, Lenny, you got any hybrids?" And I said, "Okay, first let me ask you, why are you asking that question?" "Well, I've just, hybrids are really hot right now, and my daughter has one, and I thought about maybe getting one myself." And I said, "Well, to what end? I mean, what is the advantage to you?" She said, "Well, they get better gas mileage, don't they?" I said, "Well, yeah. In many cases, they do. Usually the improved fuel economy is around town or in urban driving, not on the highway." "Really? I didn't know that," she said. And so I began to explain to her how hybrids work and how they have a bigger battery and it takes over for the engine, the engine shuts off and the battery and electric motor take over, and then when there's additional power needed, then you put your foot on the gas or take your foot off the brake, one or the other, and the internal combustion engine fires up. So we talked about that for a little bit while I'm doing my exercises, and she said, "Well, how much extra are they?" It depends on what you're buying. If you're looking at a Toyota hybrid or a Honda hybrid, Kia, Hyundai, Ford, you're going to pay a premium for a hybrid. How much? Well, that depends on who you buy it from and how they're charging. See, there's a lot of dealerships right now that they don't think that the MSRP is enough to charge for a hybrid. So they have one of those little stickers beside the sticker that it might add some accessories. Most of them are overpriced, and it will also add maybe a package, like a protection package or something like that you have to buy. And she said, "Well, do you have to pay for that?" I said, "Yeah, I mean, if you want the hybrid, you're going to have to pay a premium for it." Now, you have to then get a price on a non-hybrid version of what you're looking at. So you can compare the prices between the two. I mean, if the hybrid is, let's say, they're going to charge you $4,000 more for the hybrid. Well, the way you have to look at that is how long is it going to take you to recoup the extra $4,000 in fuel savings? Oh, I didn't think about that. And most people don't. They just hear, "Oh, gosh, I got to get a hybrid. Everybody's buying hybrids." And everybody is not buying hybrids because a lot of people are putting a pencil to it. And they're saying, "Okay, maybe this isn't justifiable. Okay, so let's move on and talk about this $10,000 tax deduction for loan interest on a new vehicle. How do you qualify for that? Well, it has to happen between 2025 and 2028, because after that, it goes bye-bye. So if you buy a car, you finance it, and you pay interest on it, won't count if you get one of those zero interest loans like Ford's doing right now. I think I'd rather have the zero interest loan, but still, if you don't qualify for that, then you're going to pay, 6-7% interest. That's going to be a lot on a $40,000, $50,000, $80,000 vehicle. And so you can deduct up to $10,000 of the loan interest during that period of time. Now, what's the caveat here, Leonard? It's actually you have to buy a vehicle assembled in the United States. Well, how do you find that out? Well, you look at the window sticker, because it says where the final point of assembly is. And if it's any place in the United States, then you may qualify. There are income qualifications as well, so you need to be aware of those. So just look that up. Have your accountant check it out if you have a tax preparer, or you can just do the research yourself. But I think it's $100,000 income for an individual and $200,000 maximum for a couple. So there you go. So I'm going to take a 1-minute breather. Be back shortly. Okay, I am back. Have you ever co-signed a loan for somebody? What was your reason? Was it a good reason for let's say somebody that deserved it? Because I've seen a lot of co-signers signing for people that they really shouldn't. I mean, if I was their family member and they asked me to co-sign for them at the way they have abused their credit situation, I would say no, because past behavior is often indicative of future behavior, especially when it comes to credit. I mean, unless somebody's going to change their lifestyle a lot, then I wouldn't be willing to go ahead. I'd also want to look and see the credit report myself. Let's say that you have a nephew and you love that nephew, but he couldn't finance a baseball hat because of massive amounts of credit card debt. His debt-to-income ratio is completely out of whack. He can't even make the payments he's got right now, and he's wanting to – maybe he is trading in a car, that has a payoff, and maybe the payment's the same, but still, he was like 10 times over 30 days past due in the last year. Out of 12 months, he was late 10 times. And if he's much later, they're just going to repossess the car. Do you really want to co-sign for somebody like that? You don't have to help them. Don't let their begging and pleading have that impact on you. Even if it's your child, they need to learn a lesson. And obviously they haven't. And they're going out and wanting to buy another vehicle. Well, what's the reason they're wanting to buy another vehicle? I would want to know that. Is the current vehicle unreliable? I mean, could you just loan them some money to get their vehicle fixed? Do they really have to go out and buy a new Kia that you have to, sign on board with them? Just remember, as a cosigner, you're just as responsible as the person who's buying the car. If your name is also on the title, which is supposed to be, most lenders will require the cosigner's name to also be on the title of the car. And you better make sure that they maintain insurance on that vehicle, that they don't leave the dealership without that vehicle being insured. Because if it's totaled out there in the intersection in front of the dealership, you're on that note. You're stuck. Plus, you have legal liability for the car if your name's on the title. If they are in a serious accident, they're at fault, somebody ends up getting killed, they're going to sue anybody that they can sue, and your name's on the title. You weren't driving the car or anything, but you have liability because it was your car. And maybe the person had a bad driving record as well. And so, you've opened yourself to a great loss. And you might have liability insurance that would protect you up to a point. Most people do not have near enough to be able to handle a major multi-million-dollar lawsuit because of somebody being reckless and careless. And one other thing is you never buy a car and finance it in your name, knowing that someone else, maybe a grandchild, a child, an adult child, is going to be responsible for the payments. They have ruined their credit. And so, well, I'll go in to buy the car, but now you got to make the payments on it. Does that sound like an innocent thing within a family? I mean, I can understand how a family member wants to help somebody. Maybe they have justifiable reasons for wanting to help somebody. And so they buy a car in their name, their credit. As far as the bank knows, as far as the dealership knows, they're buying the car for themselves. But they give that car to the other person, and the other person is responsible for the monthly payments. That's called a straw purchase. We've talked about that in the past. Is there any liability with a straw purchase? There sure is. The lender, let's say that you financed it through some bank, they could actually call the loan once they found out it was a straw purchase, so you would have to pay off the loan. That could be hard. You might be able to go to another bank and get them to finance it for you, but they're going to want the person responsible for the payments on that note. And then as far as legal problems, yes, it's called loan fraud. It could be filed under wire and mail fraud. Those could be federal, could involve jail time. So this is a serious thing. Now here's what happens in a lot of car dealerships that are crooked. They will suggest that you do a straw purchase. You have this salesperson, and he's been in the business a long time, and he's a crook, and he's managed a lot of folks, helped a lot of folks with terrible credit navigate through a lot of different scenarios. And one of those scenarios is the straw purchase. And he says, well, do you have any relatives that might be able to put this in their name? And then you just make the monthly payments to them. I mean, I'm sure they love you and trust you. Would they be willing to do that for you? I don't know. Let me go ask. And so they get on the phone or go visit Uncle Charlie, and Uncle Charlie's elderly, doesn't really think through the whole process, and they sucker him into coming to the dealership, sitting down and signing a bunch of paperwork. And the finance manager, he knows it's a straw purchase, but he's a crook also. And you know what they're hoping for? They're hoping that that guy will make all those payments, and they'll make them on time, and no phone call will be made by the lender to find out that this is really a straw purchase. Because banks, I've actually seen banks stop doing business with dealers who carried on with this kind of nonsense for long periods of time. But I think this does get back to my original point. Sometimes we do things for folks when they don't deserve it, when they haven't earned it. And unfortunately, a lot of our relatives and friends and stuff will ask us to do favors for them that are extremely one-sided. And they're not looking at the consequences, the possible things that could happen to us because of their previous irresponsibility. So just make sure that you are fully aware of what their credit situation is. Have a private conversation with the people at the dealership. Tell your nephew to excuse himself and review the credit statement or the credit application and the report from the credit bureau, and have him go over that and say, tell me what's going on with my nephew. I want to look at every one of his debts and see why does he have such a low score? Why can't he get financed in his own name? Tell me why. And I'll bet you that 9 times out of 10, you won't co-sign for him, because you will then know the whole story. Now, sometimes they co-sign for somebody. It's not a straw purchase. Both names are on the title, and the wheels fall off. They have a bad car. Something happens, and they don't want to pay for it anymore, so they bring it up here and park it, or bring it up to the dealership, whatever. It doesn't just go away. What happens to a repo? Well, what happens is that if it's a voluntary repo like that, They drop it off at the dealership, hand us the keys. They say, I don't want this thing anymore. They clean out all their stuff, and we notify the bank, and the bank comes and picks it up. The bank arranges to have the vehicle taken to an auto auction. The vehicle is sold for a certain amount. Okay, so they take that amount, and they add back all the repossession charges, the auction fees. They add all of that to that balance, and then they compare that to what the loan was. And if there was let's say there's a $15,000 or $20,000 deficiency between what it was sold for and all the expenses and what the bank or what the customer actually owed on the car, the lender will then go to court in the domicile of where the person lives, and they'll get a judgment in court. And so once they have that judgment, they can go after that person, whoever's on that title. So they're going to go after the person who has the most assets. And more than likely, it's not going to be the buyer. It's not going to be the young person who was responsible for making the payments on it, because all he owns is a couch and a cell phone. No, they're going after you, the cosigner. Your paid-for house, your paid-for cars, your bank account, your check. They can actually go to your lender, garnish your check, and take monthly payments out of what you expect as far as earnings. That's not good. They can put a lien on your house. They can put a lien on your car. They can put a lien on anything they want to because they have a judgment against you. What do you do about that? Well, I've seen elderly couples forced into bankruptcy because of co-signing for a note on a young person. And it just got so completely out of whack, and they weren't paying attention to the numbers. I mean, they're not the ones buying the car. They're just writing their signature down on a piece of paper, and they're trusting that the person who's buying the vehicle is going to follow up with their commitments. And too often they don't. And that's why it's so important to review their behaviors by looking at the credit report and see what the real story is, and to find a way to be able to manage this so that if you are a cosigner, legitimate cosigner, not a straw purchase, that you have some degree of control over it. Maybe you're the one paying the young person. It depends on what the payment arrangements are. Maybe you're paying half the payment, and they stop their half. And all of a sudden, when you look at your disability income or your Social Security check or something like that, you just don't have enough to be able to manage it. And then you have to take drastic measures, and then somebody takes a bite out of you. That's just a sad thing to see, is elderly abuse, because they just don't know. We take a lot of care at my dealership whenever an older person comes in. And you can tell the ones that are sharp and, they're very businesslike versus the ones that are just kind of clueless and trusting. And, if I ever felt like I had a salesperson that was abusing somebody like that, they wouldn't last very long at my business. And, we remind our salespeople on a regular basis to understand the buyer. Put their needs first. You'll get what you want by helping them get what they want. But don't ever deceive them in any way. Because if you do, and I find out, you'll be done. But that's not the way it is at every store. It's just not. The ones that have those big sale events and, balloons all over the place, and a bunch of strange salespeople from Florida come up and do a hosted event at a dealership. All they care about is ramming you into a vehicle, and they will break every rule they can until they get caught. It's just, the ones that scream the loudest are the dealers that make the most noise and sound like a carnival atmosphere. Those are the ones that you have to watch out for. The ones that say, bad credit, no problem. It's a problem. I mean, if you've got bad credit, one of two things are going to happen. You're not going to get the car, or you're going to get the car and you're going to pay an exorbitant rate of interest. And your motivation is to get into a different car, and you don't care how they get you in it. You just want a new car. And so So you become a victim to anything that they can get done. And what you're going to find out when you get home and review your paperwork is just how badly you were taken advantage of. And, it's just a sad thing. People get so exuberant, about buying a new car. And if they've got really bad credit, they're extremely exuberant because they didn't think it was going to happen anyway. And so they were able to get them in there. Well, you wouldn't believe the strings that they had to pull to get that done, the things that they had to hide. One of the things they hide is what your true income is, and I'll talk to you about that here in just a second. One of the ways that lenders and car dealers get people with terrible credit into car loans is they lie about their income. And this is requested on a credit application. And you'll know that they're going to do this when they say, okay, fill out everything on here except the income. Just leave that blank, and we'll figure that out for you. So what they're saying is that your income that you make is not adequate, and the bank won't finance it. So they're going to give you a raise. Not your employer. No. The dealership is going to fake a raise. They're going to hope that the bank will not require proof of income, because there are a lot of banks that don't. They call it POI, proof of income. And if you don't have to prove it, they can put any number there. So if anytime somebody says, well, just leave that blank, we don't have to have your income, that's the dealership that you need to just say, thank you, see ya, and leave. Because you're going to pay a price. There's a penalty for dealing with those yahoos. And you don't find out about it sometimes until it's too late. And then the car gets repossessed, and Papaw ends up having to, mortgage his barn in order to pay for your frivolousness. So I apologize up front for lecturing, but this is a danger zone. This is one of those points that get not only the kid with the bad credit, but the grandparent or parent or whatever, but all of them get harmed in this scenario, and the only one that wins is the dealer, as long as he doesn't get caught. Well, thanks for listening to this edition of My Car Guru. If you have any questions, text them to me. That's the easiest way, 423-552-2020, or you can email me at lennylawson2020@gmail.com, and I'll see you next time.